Series of speeches by some of the people most affected on that day. And tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris will close out the convention. We'll have a preview of her speech. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, August 22nd. Willie is in Chicago this morning, along with the host of Way Too Early, White House Bureau Chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire. We also have with us U.S. Special Correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, and co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend, former senior advisor and chief spokesperson to Vice President Kamala Harris, Simone Sanders Townsend. Also with us, the host of the podcast On Brand with Donnie Deutsch, and contributor to the conservative website The Bulwark, Tim Miller. He previously served as a spokesman for the Republican National Committee. And NBC News national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman.
That's all the time we have for this morning. Ana Cabrera begins coverage. Next, let's first go to the two guys who did not sleep last night. Willie guys and
Willie,
Jonathan Lemire. Willie, take us through the night last night.
By the way, speaking of high school football, I think we have enough people on to put up a full defensive unit right now. Do we have 11? I think we can do it. Stuff the run. You're vulnerable deep, but you stuff the run. You said it, Joe. You and I both played high school football. That was a high school football coach giving a locker room speech to a party in a country last night. Incredible amount of bio given about Governor Walz last night, who he is, really introducing him to the country. I feel like a lot of us have gotten to know him a lot better in the last couple of weeks. But the nation, let's be honest, doesn't really know much about the guy. So they got to get a look at him, a look at his family, the emotion on his son Gus last night as he said, "That's my dad up there." It was a beautiful moment. And honestly, we've said this, I feel like, every night, John, but just the enthusiasm in this building that cannot be manufactured. The star power in this building. I'm not just talking about Oprah, who gave a rousing speech that was something of a surprise until yesterday, but just the lineup of Democrats, the young Democrats, the youthful energy that's projected, whether it's Governor Westmore, Governor Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, up and down, and then a nod to the past with Bill Clinton as well.
Yeah, and Bill Clinton still got it. He spoke last night. He rewrote his speech on Monday. They said he had been moved by the sort of the joy emanating from this room, felt like he needed to have a different approach. Look, he talks quieter than he used to. He talks slower than he used to, by his own admission, but he captivated the room. They were spellbound by his remarks. And in classic Bill Clinton style, he went way over his allotted time. But he laid out a forceful argument for Kamala Harris and, again, sort of belittled Donald Trump and talked about how Trump in a way that eloquently said, Donald Trump only focuses on himself. It's about the I. Don't talk about listen to how he speaks about himself. Everything is about himself when Trump gives his remarks. We had House Speaker former Speaker Pelosi spoke, as we were discussing at the end of the last hour. She was the face of the move to push past President Biden. But it seems like those rifts have largely healed here. And this is a party that is now unified, focused around the vice president, and now Governor Walz, who, of course, was the capstone last night. And I, like you, was struck. I mean, every time I see the clip of his son tearing up and saying, "That's my dad," it gets me. There was real emotion there. They leaned in heavily into the Coach Walz motif. They even brought some of his former players up to salute the former defensive coordinator of a state championship team, I'll note. And the banners, the signs you can see in the crowd also say Coach Walz.
And there they are. Mankato West. 1999 state champs, Joe.
Formidable group.
There you go. Big, meaty line. Yeah, they weighed 127 when they were playing there.
Behind them.
Joe, I'll also say it was interesting to watch how this party, especially last night, is leaning into issues that maybe were perceived as vulnerabilities. I'm talking last night about immigration. You had Senator Chris Murphy, who was one of the co-authors of that legislation that Donald Trump killed, along with James Lankford of Oklahoma, the Republican there. He came out and said, "We worked hard for months and months and months. We got the deal Republicans said they wanted. We presented it to them, and Donald Trump came in and killed the bill." Kamala Harris says, I will sign that bill when I become president. Going hard, very interesting. Wow. This is an issue that Donald Trump thinks he has on Democrats, and the Democrats last night say, no, actually, you killed that bill. We are going to be on the offensive on immigration.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new Democratic Party. This is a different type of Democratic Party than the type that I ran against. I mean, you know, they were always very easy to go after, and they'd, like, you know, sort of run around in circles, and they were for the war before they were against the war. They were this, they were that. You take an issue that they were nervous about, and they'd run away from it. And you just, it would be just easy to run against them. Now they're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Take the issue that's your weakness, make it your strength, and go straight at them with it. And it's hard to beat that. I will say also, Tim, we used to run against Democratic parties. It was like the old Simpsons cartoon where they had Republican conventions and they held up banners that said, we don't care about people. Then they go to the Democratic convention, they held up banners that said, we can't run things,
we
right?
hate ourselves.
Yeah, we can't run things. And this is a Democratic Party, I mean, just ruthlessly efficient. I have not seen a convention night after night after night that sets it up this well. This is not the Democratic Party that you and I are used to seeing.
No, the way that they co-opted all these traditional Republican themes, now they aren't Republican values really, but Republican themes. Absolutely. Last night was, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the freedom, the way they've co-opted that word. But last night it was much more than that. The patriotism, there's the USA placards, there were more USA chants at the Democratic convention than the Republican convention. I think that there was more mention of God and the Bible. You saw that in a lot of speeches, like Hakeem Jeffries, Oprah, Tim Walz. That you saw last night. Football, obviously. Patriotism, talking about the Olympic team. The Republicans are complaining there were drag queens in the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. You know, last night they're like, we love our Olympic heroes. Yay. I know it's like a very American, heartland America thematically. And that was, you know, obviously very savvy, and it's something that sometimes Democrats in the past were uncomfortable with or ran away from.
Right.
Not last night.
They always were uncomfortable about it. If somebody started a USA chant in a Democratic crowd, everybody would turn around and look at them. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Plant?
What? What? Who let the Republican in? But now you're exactly right. But there's a reason, too. This is not sort of just faux patriotism. This is, I mean, it's because Donald Trump has opened the door. When Donald Trump brags about saying America sucks, when he brags about saying America's on the decline, when he brags about saying that America is a stupid place, well, we have a lot to be proud of as Americans. I've always believed that. Doesn't matter what party I'm in. I love this country. I'm proud of this country. And most Americans feel the way I do about America. So when you have one party that's actually attacking America all the time, then yeah, I'm going to hold the USA placard up and I'm going to go USA, USA, USA. And it works. It's the same thing with immigration. They killed the toughest immigration bill in history that James Langford wrote. And so it's working because it's true.
Yeah, and the Democrats are showing bravery, and they are leaning into issues. They brought in last night, and it was one of the most emotional moments, the parents of Hirsch Goldberger hostages talking about basically, and in the most empathetic way, saying that there is agony on both sides and we need to bring them home, and talking about this as not a political issue, it's a humanitarian issue. And you contrast that with Donald Trump trying to, you know, pit Jews against each other. And it was, as you said, they're leaning into the issues that are even challenging for them. And an entire night of freedom and joy and freedom. And boy, I wouldn't want to be running against those Democrats right now.
Not at all. And Willie, we're going to have they're going to be here later this morning.
Yeah, that to me, I think Donnie's absolutely right. That was the most emotionally striking moment of the night, particularly when Mrs. Goldberg called out to Hirsch at the end in an unscripted moment, leaned into the mic and said, if you can hear us, be strong, survive. They will be our guests a little bit later this morning, as you said. Caddy, your impressions from last night as a part of this week and leading up to the moment of the week, which will be the acceptance speech tonight by Vice President Kamala Harris. Again, just stopping and noting what an extraordinary moment in history it is, not just because of who she is, but because of how she got here, where a month ago things were very much up in the air in the Democratic Party.
And look how united and excited the Democratic Party is. Yeah. And we went through all of those weeks before Joe Biden stepped down with people second-guessing Kamala Harris and saying, actually, you know what, maybe he shouldn't step down because she would be the next choice. And there are so many concerns about whether she's going to be a good candidate. And we've seen over the course of the last 4 months what an exceptional candidate she has been and how she's rallied the Democratic Party behind her. I thought one of the striking things last night was Tim Walz's speech. It was about 16, 17 minutes by my judgment. Joe Biden spoke for an hour on Monday night. It shows what you can do in a political speech when you don't need it to go very, very long. He did it. He told the stories. I think he had, just by virtue of the fact of who he is and playing up this coach theme, it does do something to reach out to rural, white, perhaps non-college educated voters who might be leaning for Donald Trump. I mean, he looks like the kind of guy they could be comfortable with. I don't know if any of those voters are going to switch sides because of Tim Walz, but he, of all of the speakers we've had here during the course of this week, he has done the most to get there.
He's running a very Friday Night Lights campaign right now, is Coach Walz.
There's something about a field goal, and we're in the end, and anyway, we've got to keep going.
Very good. Yeah. Field goal. Nice reference. We'll get you there. Let's listen to a little bit of Governor Walz's speech last night.
Now, I grew up in Butte, Nebraska, a town of 400 people. I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale. But I'll tell you what, growing up in a small town like that, you learn how to take care of each other. That family down the road, they may not think like you do. They may not pray like you do. They may not love like you do. But they're your neighbors. And you look out for them, and they look out for you. So while other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours. We also protected reproductive freedom because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. That includes IVF and fertility treatments. And this is personal for Gwen and I. If you've never experienced the hell that is infertility, I guarantee you, you know somebody who has. And I can remember praying each night for a phone call, the pit in your stomach when the phone had rang, and the absolute agony when we heard the treatments hadn't worked. It took Gwen and I years, but we had access to fertility treatments. And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you.
John Heilman, brevity is the soul of wit, they say. That never really absorbed into my being. But at a convention, 17 minutes, you define that as brief. And it looks like the governor did that. Did he deliver?
I think so. I mean, look, I agree with you, Joey. We're used to these long convention speeches. You know, Bill Clinton's a great example where, you know, he ends up going over time and then everybody says, wow, it was just so brilliant that we're fine with that. And it's almost surprising, you know, when someone gets up and comes in well under what everyone expects to be the time. I will say one of the things about this convention is that they have been running late every night. And, you know, we thought remember back when Joe Biden started as late as he did on Monday night, there was all this discussion about, you know, how unfortunate it was that he started out of prime time. Everybody has been going out of prime time ever